What's up, everybody? Brady Fiel here, coming at you with a review for the most recent Sibiir album, Undergang, that was released June 14th of this year. After it made my top 10 albums of the year video that I just did recently, I definitely wanted to give this album a full review because I discovered it late in the year, and it's such a unique listening experience. Because when you hear the term blackened hardcore, I just feel like that doesn't really sound like it would work. But it fucking works. It works like a charm on this album. The cold, brooding atmosphere of black metal, and at times genuine black metal passages, making prominent use of tremolo riffs, blast beats, ominous note choices, that has never sounded more comfortable with hardcore sensibilities and thrash sensibilities, with the more hardcore-esque vocals and the groovy bottom-heavy riffs that are combined usually with those more black metal type riffs. The main groove to the song The Plague is my favorite riff/groove on the whole album, and a great example of everything I just said. This album manages to be cold and dark, yet razor sharp and angry all at the same time. And oftentimes the result emotionally is this overwhelming sense of just fear and dread, like hell is just raining down from the sky. That's how a lot of these riffs and sections of these songs genuinely make me feel. It's like the same kind of feeling you get when you watch a horror movie that you really like. Like it's this welcome sense of fear. And that's saying a lot because fear is maybe the most difficult emotion to capture just through music. And these feelings of just hell raining down on you are present throughout the majority of the album, but really ring through in some of these main riffs. Like I've already singled out The Plague as a favorite riff of mine, but also the intro track, Divergence and Deceit. With those pounding snare drums perfectly in line for each note change on the guitar, it sounds just so full and so alive. That part and that intro riff in this song, it sounds like Satan and his army's entrance music into heaven. The chorus is super dynamic and full of energy, and it is just repetitive enough to not be a problem, if that makes sense. Like it's repetitive enough just to get engraved in your head, and it doesn't really feel stale or repetitive in an actuality throughout the whole song. I also love how when that main riff comes back after the first chorus, they're doing blast beats under it. And then track 2, Placid Waters, really takes that further in a sense that this is probably the most straight up black metal type song on this whole record. It kicks off pretty much in straight up black metal fashion. But then the chorus of this song has this stomping bass drum that really drives it, and these real menacing background vocals that have an excellent contrast with the more full sounding lead vocals. And this song leads me to another one of my favorite aspects of this album, is the amazing subgenre blending. This album managed to encompass so many different subgenre influences, not only in the album itself, but also in individual songs at times. Like Ruinous, track 3, has those sludgy parts contrasted really well with some of the most prominent thrash influence on the album. The Famine, the closing track, one of my favorites on here, opens with those real ominous, doomy black metal sections, but then it kicks into, again, some very prominent thrash influence. Watch the World Burn from a House on Fire is just straightforward doom metal at its finest, with that really slow-paced intro riff that just sounds so mean and so menacing. And with its slow tempo, it really maintains that doom metal feel throughout the entire song. I've already singled out the hardcore and thrash influence on this album, but of course there are some very prominent death metal elements as well, just in a lot of the tremolo riffs and a lot of the fast double bass drumming and some of the more slightly guttural type vocals on here, which do happen sprinkled in. They're just a bit harder to kind of decipher because of how the album is produced, which is another compliment that I'm going to have later on. Wearing the Weight is another real doomy track on here, and sludgy track, which, I mean, has several amazing parts, but just as a drummer, one thing that really stuck out to me is just that one unconventional cymbal crash in the main riff. Things that are just so small like that can really change the overall impact of the song, because if that wasn't there, I think this song would feel a lot more of a chore to get through, especially that main riff, but that just adds that extra little hint of spice to it. The chorus of this song has some very Gojira-esque, echoey style vocals, which sound really full and again really menacing. The vocals on here definitely do a really good job of maintaining on kind of that delicate precipice that Joe from Gojira nails so well, of being just on the brink of singing and screaming, kind of just right on that fine line between them. Even the instrumental track Engerdal on this album I really enjoy, which is pretty rare for anybody that watches my content regularly. But seriously, this song is just full of emotion and amazing note choices that still convey a real prominent sense of dread, even without any vocals. Several of the songs on here have great lyrics as well that are very poetic and complement this apocalyptic feel of the album without sounding corny or using too many indecipherable metaphors. Placid Waters might be my favorite track lyrically on here, and it just rings in as especially dark and desolate, with lyrics talking about finding solace in the darkness. And it has to be said, like, the production of this record is just absolutely perfect. It manages to sound easily distinguishable and clear while still maintaining some elements of having that more lo-fi production that is very common among black metal. The riffs have that echo and ring to them that really adds to the emotion of the more black metal style note choices on here, yet they're still pretty hard hitting for more of the hardcore and thrash stuff. The vocal production as well is great. The vocals again really ring and echo and do sound a lot more menacing purely because of how they're produced. And as I mentioned earlier, when the vocalist on here does go a bit lower in his range, it's done in a way that doesn't feel overly pushed to the forefront. Like a lot of deathcore bands kind of, you could tell that's what happened, I guess. The bass has some awesome shining moments on here, both in terms of style and production. My favorite part of this album that really is great examples of both of those elements is that bass line break in Wearing the Weight. It's kind of just echoing the main riff, but it's sandwiched right in like the bridge of the song, and it kind of is a moment to breathe, yet it still feels really unsettling at the same time. I have very little negative things to say about this album. The only things I could possibly even think of are just a few sections in some of the songs that felt slightly underwhelming. Like after that dramatic main riff in Wearing the Weight, I feel like those verses are just a bit too simplistic and stripped back and not really earwormy enough to really maintain that momentum. If I had to choose a least favorite song on here, it would probably be The Flood, just because I think, again, some of the more instrumental sections on here just aren't really as overtly hooky and emotive, I guess. I do like those black metal passages that kind of pop in and out of the song, but overall the majority of it just didn't really stick out to me. But really it's the only song on the album that is the case for. And guys, I'm so glad that I decided to branch out near the end of my year to just find any more albums that could have made my top 10 list. And I'm so glad that I found this album from that. This album gets a 28 out of 30 for me. If you have not checked this album out and you are a black metal fan, an extreme metal fan at all, or even more of a hardcore or thrash fan, I highly encourage you to check out this album. Shout out to Sibiir for making one of the most emotive albums I heard all year, and I'm very excited to see what they do next. But that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. As always, thank you guys very much for watching. Stay tuned for more album reviews as we roll into the new year. I'm going to be trying to do at least 1 to 2 reviews a week. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.